Good morning, Katrina.
Good morning.
Okay, looks like we can hear you well.
Marxism. Do you know? Do you say? Or that is it? No. Yeah. Consider now. What do you say? I get it. I just talk it. Oh, okay, but that's. Yeah.
Om Namo Manjushriye Namo Sushriye Namo Tamashriye Soha.
This everything with that. I did it out. What is it?
Gala Rinpoche, can you raise the volume a little bit?
This everything
for
with that.
Katrina? Okay.
But so that you get it. Yeah, wash. Should I wash it? Nah. Oh, not to delay.
Okay, that's better. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Gen Rinpoche, Tashi Delay. Good morning, Katrina Brooks.
Oh, not to delay. Good morning, sir. Good morning. Good morning. Yes.
Yeshua knows that in English, so.
Yeah.
And just to let The participants online know that April 6th will be the last teaching of this series. And so this morning we'll begin with an homage to Shakyamuni Buddha down in the chat box. The teacher now transcend and destroy the one that's gone, the foe destroy, completely and fully awakened one. Perfect in knowledge and good conduct, one not to bliss, nor the world's supreme guide means to be tamed. Teacher of gods and humans too, the Buddha and thou transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings and hope for refuge. When, O supreme among humans who are born on this earth, you face seven strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise and I bow. With your bodies formed supremely fine, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain. Fame that blazes in the three worlds, winner the best, supreme guide, to you I bow. With a supreme science, face like a spotless moon, color like gold, to you I bow. You are immaculate, the three worlds are not incomparable, wise one, to you I bow. Great compassionate protector, all-knowing teacher, field of merit and good qualities, vast as an ocean, to the Tathagata I bow. Through purity, freeing from attachment, through virtue, freeing from the lower realms. Unique, supreme, ultimate reality, to the Dharma, let us peace I bow. Having freed themselves, showing the path to freedom too, well established in the trainings. The holy field endowed with good qualities, to the Sangha I bow. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind completely, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion that droppeth through a bubble. A dream, a flash of lightning and clouds, see conditioned things as such. Through this merit may sentient beings attain the state of all seeing, subdue the faults, and be delivered from the ocean of cyclic existence, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn Mount Meru, foreland, sun and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you, may all beings enjoy this pure land. Venerable holy gurus, in the space of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom and love, let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma, in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Idam Gurunam I take refuge until I am awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. I love merit I create by listening to the Dharma. I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings.
Oh yeah, remember.
Tiksongyalna.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that kind of thing. Order. 관계 투지 예수네. 관계 투지 예수네. 또 탐지 방배실 담배 쉬는 된제. 부담되려 차차로. 아야 당은 좋아 소리. 나가라도 참아. 담배 취주배. 리진 개발시시 도그러와. 연주자부터 되시네 고 취주발이야. 굉장히 공개하다 그거 말아. 이제 멤버십 고 취주발 대신 공부. 근데 치 참고받아 나그 소소를 참고봐. 이제 강가 참에 밀루시. 도바데 고 교황아마. 레선 부사발을 때는 좋아라. 아디나시다 다른 아주 대답이 밀려 개발시한데. 현대 직부터 나고 세고 내면서 직부터 나 소주나. 내 방법이 되어도. 이게와 치마 매받은 데에 고다를 마도. 이게와 치마 유도. 이게와 치마야. 현대리아 연주기 밀려 돕네. 내 산재기 땜발을 단지에네. 랑이 냠내 제바디 고내 공도 빼야치도. 나다 미에 고반치 토바자고. 저쪽에 때 개월째. 저리야. 이 유튜브 그거라도. 근데 샤라 동해 계시게 주. 니리 메체나리아 소설령아 예수님 지권에. 현지 소주발라 소바 세와빵. 소주발라 소바 진유지 개와주. 대체가 이나고. 여치망에 손도 매기와 하다 미에 고반통 그라. 뒤털이야더니 산지기 때마다 자올라 소바. 센딜이야. 냠내 집에 연대도서 기회치도서 공내권도 빼야 구갑이와라. 뒤쳐. 하더니 아담이 겨와 방제판에 겨와 균이 톱을 짜고르도. 뒤 균이 톱을 짜네 하담이 겨와대야. 운전기 삼놓고 오여라. 아담이 겨와대야 그 동해 매우던데 말아 동해만 부여라. 얘가 나시 동해를 쏘봐. 겨와 토마 매번에 동해냐 되기와라. 단다 동해냐. 마음발로 동해인데 밀라에 겨가 나치. 아마 여자 답주 알아 치부동이 있어. 동해 다 돈다. 내가 녀모배 생활체인데 라와메 뭐 풍부 돌리체 거래. 얘인데 들러 걸어와시거라. 내가 녀모배 왕게 라와메 뭐 코알에 타르바치 자고 삼삼로 거거라. 얘들 코알에 타르바 주디카레스네. 작단이들이 세바스도 차바. 나와서도 콘도. 세바게 담보 용서도 그네 용거랬으나 나오냠도 나감진 바지는 나다 나에서 될 세바 차바디 용거라. 뒤인데 뒷방고여라. 뒷방에 돈달이야. 내가 셔바디 라와에 악바르바티 되시 멤버. 메타바임바 풍풍가라서 봐 메타바 깨식깨식이 줄에 메타바임바. 내가 아서도 라와도 줘봐. 거기 봐서는 내 요새 조조서 해버렸지. 악수가 째서 받았지. 어떤데 삼르시도 와. 어떤데 가도 매봐. 다음에 또 왜 나와. 야 동반이 또 왜 나와고. 나와 공부할 때는 아니 따라 세바반에. 하루와토가 자고래. 세바 소소나. 세바방바에는 아니 고아교환에 요말도. 하루와토가 자고요서. 내가 라치부 타르와토바 삼체는 민디서. 현대 파마니엔데게 선배. 요항아마다 띵아마라 소바. 요 컨디지 랑바이네야. 라게 파마니엔데라 소바다 시야. 아니 인제 차버리셔서요. 현대 짱짱의 파마니엔데 짱짱인 거 말해. 디마인게 사마게 펜도체네. 마무치를 끝을 때는 아주 소고요라. 그래서 semje 사마 라는 디틴신 디티메시세하게 개발시에 매버리셔야 되어라. 뒤인데 자고 심젤이야 리스마 제바 세디 파마니엔데라 소바. 강라 제바이나 티나시 탐제 요리여섬. 인데 샤데 조야더니 파마메바네 동해냥 고알라. 마오바나 투스땡게레섬. 근데 녀고나 베타ጆ버레 섬제와 텔레 동해다 트래버 차고도섬. 이 자외치도 단다라는 누가 매베. 라교고세 연대 군대인지 기고. 라탑 잠바다 써와라 소바 상부차들을 탑. 시럽 시행기들은 동해서와 집에 시럽. 메다바다 다음에 또 벌어 소바 시럽을 잡으려도. 탑다 시럽 니가 탈심배 상계지 고반삼 탑다 시럽 니가 탈심배 심생기 또 네가 용수 저거 권에 접통경기 상계지 고반시 신에게 토버차 대시도 네 람라 림지 로바이 롭기 삼제 대시도 되네 최년에 람라 림지 로바차 냠배 우노세 탐네 셈버쇼스
So here, at this present moment, we have this kind of precious human rebirth with all of the sort of conditions necessary to be able to accomplish the Dharma. If we were, say, born as an animal, we wouldn't have that ability. But right now, we have a kind of situation where we have all of the external conditions. We have met with the Buddha's teachings and so forth, as well as the kind of internal conditions that are necessary for us to be able to actually achieve the Dharma, something beyond just this life. If it were just this life, then okay, we could put all of our efforts into sustaining ourselves in just this life, but we have to take rebirth in the future. And so in order to be able to continue and develop our practice of the Dharma, we need to, in the future, accomplish this kind of same special basis wherein we have the conditions to be able to continue and improve our practice of the Dharma. So, and this means that on a day-to-day basis, we need to be thinking about how we are acting with our body, speech, and mind, seeing that any kind of activities that cause suffering for others, that bring about the suffering of others, are negativities, are non-virtues. Things like killing and stealing and harming others in various ways are going to lead to bad results. And so it is only by having connected with the Buddha's teachings, by having developed a kind of sense of the Dharma, that we are able to, through our practice, continue to try to get to a place where we can have a good rebirth in the future. So here, when we look then at the kind of situation, though, even if we are to say take a good rebirth as a human or a god in order to be able to continue our practice of the Dharma, when we look at all of samsara, we look at all of the various types of beings, and there are various types of sufferings in the different realms. But even if we are born as a human, we are subject to the sufferings of birth, aging, sickness, and death. As a long life god, those kinds of nice situations, we are subject to various sufferings of seeing the signs of death and so forth. And in order to escape this kind of cycle where we are continually taking up aggregates and casting them off, this is really what it means to be in samsara. We have to get rid of the kind of causes that lead to such continued rebirth. And so we need to get free of our attachment and aversion, the kind of grasping craving for our side, as well as the sort of hatred, anger toward the other. And when we look at, well, what is the source of that attachment and anger or hatred? It's our sense of an I. It is this sense of grasping at an I, a self that is like permanent and self-sufficient, also autonomous, that leads us to then engage in being attached to certain things and have aversion for others. And so our grasping at something that's like a self and I, that's somehow autonomous or free, it is able to withstand or bear analysis. There's something that we could point to as being that I. It is on the basis of grasping such an I that we then give rise to this kind of attachment, in particular, this sort of craving. And if we can eliminate that false sense of an I, then we can eliminate the craving, the aversion that comes from that. And so we can gain a kind of freedom from this cycle of suffering. But when we think about it, just to attain our own freedom is really not sufficient. All of these beings, those that have acted as our kind mothers and fathers, we have those that have given us kindness in this life as mothers and fathers, but there are others. We are dependent on other beings for our very survival. And when we look around, we see that we can't identify a single being who hasn't treated us with great kindness. And so it would be wrong. It would be like wrong for us to just leave all of those other sentient beings in that kind of suffering situation wherein they are continually, like us, subject to taking rebirth and continuously experiencing suffering. But in our current state, we really don't have the ability to fully help these other sentient beings. But if we were to be able to achieve Buddhahood, a state in which we have eliminated all faults, have developed all good qualities, then we would have the ability to guide others without any sort of fallibility. So by perfecting the kind of method side, by developing the qualities of a good heart and kindness, love and compassion, as well as developing our wisdom, we are able to achieve that state of perfect, complete enlightenment, wherein we have the ability to fully benefit other sentient beings, help them to eliminate their sufferings, beings. And so with this kind of contemplation, we should think that I will, by any means, achieve this state of Buddhahood. And for this purpose, I am now undertaking, listening to the Dharma in order to be able to achieve that goal.
Oh yeah. I'm going to daily song because uma chupa lese Robin Dawa Madame Avatar na ro. Semye kine semje jigden da ne jigden shindu na songo. Drama lu lele ke bar so sembana ne leje yo mais o tin do sa. O ti da yang tin ni le. Da chebu ka ba to chir te cheba bone sem sang bar to se. O ton da nga tu de kar she gore se na. Jigden ge te ra ne jambulin de da. Ro imanda wala so ba te samata. Garanzo tesa kan jambulin sa to de da sigora. Ne tela long chen ke simchen ramen ra tan ru tam mi da ro tin ru ramen ra do wa ju ji simchen ne ji ji de ni yong do wa o de so da kan de chen yong ge wa de se ti ko le she ge wa da o de jang ben ba de ne cha ro wa ti se ra o kyo nga chi le so ba yo ma de se ko ran rang shin ge chong ba de ti tam ma kan de chong de su so de tin de sam le tang gu ma de se ge wa da ko ran rang shin chong de kyu me ba la yoke yo mare korate yo ni to ne ne chongare sigora rangshi chongare te yoke yo mare tingel su se bata ngama da chima da tende samlata yo mare marazo echen di chanja de ma to tene tangma da chima ke samlata ko mare se o tende tawachi yo ngora da ngema do ya ya o di me ya ka chi ge chitso se ra Embuchi yore, tutu chuba choro, o digi indi ngobu kanga tsuki vares, tambuchi yores. O tiri mato, tita eni onju chenpo, la onju chenpo la soba tezuke, kunlu samlo tani, di kogudu san, di rendri sogu samne, samlo tani. Eni takba, Koran takba re rangchungi kiburu, o digi se vares, tende singa chi wara. Aka chiga onju, wamare chiso janjangi chunga res. Jiso se yudu chuba chis yore neba yoch. Osem yo mare yudu chuba re. Igi kanga ya keba re siwara. Chi de se na o tiles ikanja yongu mare. Sem yonge chiga samlutane sogo re se. Isonge di waju chembe samlutane ta diku kan diku sa se re se. O tende so chu chidwa. O tende ta nangba da jen la sopa da shenda mambu chiga ya. Chiso rwa. Sanje jiten kamla chone rwa. Nangba sanje bawa tozo tegi na. Tati cheba bogu cheba mares. Soso lele ten yongu dos. Soso les ne soso semle ten yongu. Sem ki kari ten den yongu dos sigyo mara. Ori taale tiba to chi zamna. Maudaso.
No. So here, picking up from where we had left off in the text, we were at the bottom of 45 with a quotation from Chandrakirti's Entry to the Middle Way, or Entering the Middle Way, where he states that mind itself creates the great variety of animate and inanimate worlds. Buddha stated that all beings arise from karma. There is no karma without the mind. And so then, excuse me, picking up again from that text, starting on 46, he also says, Chandrakirti also states, from understanding the refutation of a permanent self and a creator, one knows that the creator is merely the mind. So here, Buddhists assert that our environment, our external kind of environment, like the sun and the moon, this sort of solid planet, as well as all of the beings within it, the various animals, we can think of all of the various types of animals there are. So the container environment and that which is contained within it, these things are created due to karma. They come about from karma. Now, other views, like for example, the Charvakas, the sort of hedonists, would say that this world naturally arises without any sort of a cause. They assert that there are no past and future lives. Those are non-existent. So this is a very old system of thought in India, wherein they would say that there's really only what you can see. And so this sort of environment and the beings within it arise naturally without any sort of a cause. Or there is the assertion of the Samkhyas that would say that there's a sort of primal substance, a primary substance that's material. It is something that is like atomically or the particles are actually established. And this is in the nature of substance or in the nature of material. And that is what gives rise to all the world and the beings within it. There are others among the Samkhyas that would assert that there's some sort of a god. It's necessary that there is a creator, some sort of being that is self-arisen, a permanent kind of creator. So there are theistic types of Samkhyas. And then there are those that say, no, everything just arises from this primal substance, this sort of primary substance that gives rise to everything within it without any sort of intention from a creator. So there are various different thoughts on that. And then there are those that assert that there is no sort of external creator, but things arise from mind. So this includes the Buddhists as well as some like the Jains and so forth, who would say that there is no sort of external creator God, but all this arises from mind. Now, what we mean when we say that things arise from mind or the product of mind, it isn't sort of just like everything that one thinks, whatever sort of random thoughts enter one's head, that becomes reality. So we'll get into what it means to have to assert that everything arises from mind.
So go say, or similar to ne neji den damendra. Zabulin damendra mambu yungu no. Jiten kam kashe yagada kashe tuwada kashe odo chubatin de yungu ada. Neji jiten semi kene semjegi jiten damendra doa. Dola sobata chimida lada tanga lada tusu tandungu stoya ke mate. Neji jiten semjegi jiten na sobata neji jiten na sobata zo kanga de semgi. So re semlete ni chunga re sora goba asde goba re sora. Isso dan roa malu lele ke bar so se. Namba chene roa damendra kyo sange damendra nyawa yada to me lala sobata zo samatamje. Rara so le sa wala tani ke yo re chara. Roa malu lele ke bar. Sembana ne le se de ko zote sembele da sambele sera. Ambodu kulun de yongora ngetinde tinde chiyesa kyo yena da mikyo yena da yeda teche sambe sembadela sembele sora. Sembasu techola samla tangete sora. Mirachil ko kondu na tari jawso tange koshi tuche. Ese tuche sheku ya samla tangsuna te sembele sora. Ni pando ne keje she kane keje she luginam yu. Tuche ten chidusa lugiles. Sambele sura, sebati chebe sambele sura, lunga lenyi. O te zultani yungu za zo de semdere doa. Zo semge kulung chene ani lunga le sane. Ne pajo te kare kya ne paran tunge pajo tunge ke ti yungu ara. O ti na shi sigur ma to semge chebere su semge kam san sama. Kam san ba sama tamje de yungu re se. Ro jiden cheba bo onju cheba na shi. Ora ge samba rawa tu chene yungu ste se yo marwa. Semge lesane, sembe lesa, ne tegi sembe lesa. O tiche, ele tene, ne kewa da, ikwasa wale tene, kewa sangye ta, longshu sangye la soba, kewa da tunga niputi yungu wade se gora. Semye kene, semjen jiten da, nejen jiten shintu damida, yanyi mambuti yungu wade se ra. Roa malu lele kebar so, lele tene kewa yin se ra. Sem pani le yo mara sem ki sa yo ra tambo sem belle de sora lunga ji de sem ki kari che sune ti chi yo do to chewa mare to chewa de sem ra sem ki la lulia la we shu sune ko shu ra kare ja shu sune shu ra ma shu sune ko zo de ra ma to la ba la nga le a ti ke yo mare yi ji kari che ra te so sem zo de ra ye so sem ge le sangen tabu le sambu da ngen ba sa ba le tne chong ada e se ga da ati le pen da sha nga ju che de le so so samlo ta samlo sambu ta chi so samlo ta so so samlo sambu ta lob so ya bu che ten de ya bu chen ge de ko ya ri so da do wa o samba ngen ba ta ta bu ne tu ja kum shi ja samba ngen ba ta mi tu do che ran da sha de lu ba ka ga phong li chang ge ten de yong gu do wa te zu pen de che le ti ko le ba sembe le che ne ti ge sambe lu nga ge le sa ne ti ge ya ga de do ka yong de do ka jing nga ju sum thong ya do o di kum shi de nga ju ja de yo ra 이 개와는 개와 지만도 tilem 개와리 이 상해 개와게네 텐데 용데 요라 어 디스 요라 야 드네 가래 야 드니래 따다 제보가 봐 도시데 제바보는 심장이 벌써 어 나바체네 딱배 다 제바보 라오마체 원제 차사 연계도 텐데시 요 말에서래 따다 제보가 봐 도시데 네 가래에서네 제바보는 심장이 벌도세 o sem sam ki chevre sem so che ne yo sem so che sem belle sa tele tene lunga ki le sang sa tele tene le sang bu ke ta yong go le ngem ba ke du ga ti yong go do le sang bu sa ne te cha kin som go re le ngem ba sa ne du nge cha kin le do yo re o chen de re so go da ya ti chi na ti da
So here, as it says in this quotation from Chandrakirti, then that mind itself creates the great variety of animate and inanimate worlds. So here, when it comes to then the karma of beings, there's sort of common karma, shared karma that helps to establish the sort of environment that we live in, as well as the unique sort of uncommon karma of each being that creates their body, the sort of possessions and wealth that they enjoy, and so forth. And so here, there's various types of environments, various types of worlds, and all of these come about. We can see there's sort of nicer realms and lesser, lower realms, the world of animals. There's gods we're not able to directly see right now. But all of this arises from the karma that we have created with mind. All of these good and bad rebirths and so forth only can be traced back to karma. It's not as though someone, a creator god gave them or something like that. It's only karma that creates our results in these animate and inanimate worlds. And so when it comes to karma, as we've talked about before, there is that sort of intentional karma, the kind of intention that we have, as well as the intended karma, the sort of actions of body and speech that arise from the intention that we have. So intentional karma is the mind itself, that thought. Like say, for example, if you're angry at someone and you're going to go pick a fight with them, you have this thought like, oh, I'm going to go confront that person. I'm going to try to, get in a fight with them. And there's that intention, that mind, and then the sort of actions that arise out of that, the way that you act with your body, the way that you, your speech, the sort of words that you say to that person. And then those in turn are creating the causes for our future happiness and suffering. So it's not, again, as though sort of like whatever we think, whatever pops into our head arises autonomously or automatically, something like that. But it is due to the accumulation of karma, of accumulating negative non-virtuous acts that lead to suffering results, and accumulating virtuous acts that lead to happy results, that we then experience those things in the future. So all of the good and bad, all of the varieties of the world sort of arise from or are created by mind itself. And so here, continuing with the quotation, it says, Buddha stated that all beings arise from karma. There is no karma without the mind. So if we get rid of mind, there is no kind of karma. Again, karma is primarily that intentional karma, that intention that we have, as well as that is intended by it, the sort of actions of our body and speech that arise from that. So when we say go to slap somebody when we're going to fight with them, that hand doesn't move unless we have that intention of like, I want to fight with this person. And that is how we then carry out that action. So we can see this sort of in the course of our life. If we have a good intention, a positive sort of drive, and we develop good qualities, good things happen from that. Whereas if we're on a wrong path, we can see how that leads to suffering sort of results. We can see that directly, the way that actions have particular results. So here, again, it's really primarily mind that is the creator of karma that in turn ripens into the various things that we experience in the future. So continuing from Chandrakirti, it says again, from understanding the refutation of a permanent self and a creator, one knows that the creator is merely the mind. So this then, the refutation of such a creator points to the primacy of mind, that our mind is really primary. The thoughts that we have and the kind of actions intended by those are what create all of the sort of world around us.
뭐야? 얘네 다 샘지된지 제바보 임바 되나서도 샘지된지 제바보 임바서도 지된지 내진 지된다 주진 지된이가 상부당 년바 용해대 이두기죠. 와 농제자 수대지로를 써봐. 농지 조직의 류 상해를 라서봐. 와 어디서 강가데 가를 때는 버릇이네. 샘기 레사발ten 레상엘ten 용거des a 주의소 de 샘제스고라 샘기 삼로탄다 상해체 대왕의 류지 쳐봐 상해 어디레스고라 샘직된지 쳐봐보인 바테나세 샘된직된기 내려로지기 주의소들에스 yen 기발시베 주의소들에스고라 기다려 장gen기에세 베나스고라 아마송게 장gen기 라나 유벤 짐바스 낙바치와르도 소야치 자겐기 수위서 강할 소소인바다 자겐디게 낙바치 소위네 품바 소위네 가르 소위네 우리 코란 가르소서 삼르탄데 소야치를 되어도 티나시체체 지dengi 내를 론주도서 강가 제바보 신다지게 네 예바시 되게 가지고 가르소서 교당 동에 교당 아주 교상에 수수된데 말해서 와라. 당연히 분바들 입라면도 가서서 임바나시. 현다지가 아주 상보당 년바다 내진지된 상해다 유기 샘쟁기 류상해 그래서 세바 말해서 했다. 장견기 수입서 가서서 임바다 요 남자 지된 거바버 라왕게 교와 상해서 가야 제가 시내 많이 버는 노서 어때서다 소소소게 샘다 삼베 레사발 때는 용기인데 이 위소레마도 현단지된 제바 보시요 버체 이게 있는 거라 좋더니 롱체자당 롱체바 볼서 봐 이두두 간소수지 이제 제니 용기요 말레스 이 세보레스 했다 뭐 노서 뭐 숨도 세보레스 했다 야 교상에서 가야 저 척바시니 많이 버는 거 넣어서 나 뒤질랍잖아 뒤뒤체가
No. So here again, then the mind is creator of the world. Once this is seen, it becomes clear that a divine creator cannot take living beings and create for them their fortunate and unfortunate rebirths under his own power, like a potter takes a lump of clay and creates a pot. So again, we are establishing that the mind is the main cause for the sort of external environment, the container world, and those beings contained within it. So our bodies, our abodes, the various things that we enjoy, mind is the main cause of that. It isn't it's like manifestly clear if we look at things that it isn't seen to be as like a potter who takes some clay and molds it with his hands to make a pot or whatever. We can see that it's not, we can't see a creator acting in such a way. We create the kind of good and bad in terms of our fortunate and unfortunate rebirths by our karma. It's not sort of given to us, as it says here, a divine creator cannot take living beings and create for them their fortunate and unfortunate rebirths under his own power in the same way that like a potter would just take some clay and mold it. So we can see this directly, basically from our own experience, that no such creator exists.
와 담대 고마가 사망 보여도 나다 라게 깨와 상해다 ini kashi dewa da tunghe manga kashi tunghe manga dewa manga tinda yungu yordo dada nga zu tong shimba de sigura dada rangi kewa sanghe da dewa da tunghe dewa da tunghe samju sanghe se samba sanghe da choba sanghe le soba tinda yoban de sigura choba sanghe ki nebe rinpa rinpa budwa kansa li na ko sem sang lu da Lada Chetusu Chen Medra Mambuyordo, Samlutanda Medrawa, and Lu Medrawa, Sambutan Neba Medrawa, Nuji Jitel and Zambuli Sangi Mambuyordo, Garazu Tando Tode, Gazu Desa de Madu Ketungu Marwa, Jitan Zambuli and the Jitenji come the Raw, Agnes Shingam Soba, Dram in the Mambuyordo, Razum Musum to my Jurnaya. Oh, Dukas, Tada Rangi Kewa. Kewa sangeta, kewada tunghe ma yoda. Samba sambuda ngembala soba. Keso nga melel ta yogora kumshi chane ko. Ngamba samba sambu shukshimbu kombiyone, tanda sambuda chitos yogora. Ngembala shukshimbu kombiyone, ngemba yongudwa. Ota tanda sendele taga neshi kombiyone, mahobane ya tikeba ndugu yordo. Sanghe ge, nerim desi, nebe rimba mendra duwa, sanghe mambuchi rimba duwa. Then I'm the rangi kosum gile sange la combe kebale chosha or Nimakavas Namanamso le sambusa badatene. Ni le sambuki latene sambunio jinchite long chacha sambo. Yawa sambo to Yongore, Nembalatene, who were to Yongore, or Bantamata le sange is a bemedol than Yongores. Ngarji rangi kusum gile sangela umbe kebale chungshin se mama bana ya taga nashin chungye de karil ten yongure sene mama bana ya tanda ngazu chungye de ngeme sangele tene tanda te chungore sigora at mama bana ya de tanda ngazu te cheba tanga me lele tene ya de yongure se tandare mama bana ya te dar jongwe ba shi yin se mama ba yongye te tanda ngazu sende tan kewa ngame le sange sakbe Drebuli tene oti yonko bashiri eswara. Yevena tsomba chimbi kechi na yun tsamla ya tane rangi osumgi tima sewa la kebar shadi. O tende sonza ta tso de soso re de dwa. Soso mahombe tidu na sange kari chunga de soso ge le sange sayel tanda rale ge yudu. Soso sabso chekuya re shasi gora. Yevena se kyuzen tewe na se Sangel Sama Sosu Komchi na o tende le Sangel teni yungu yuna. Yusen tewe na sura. Zomba chenpu yusen, bezo chenpu cheni sara. Kechi da yuzam la yang se. Kechi da yuzam la ya sosu. Lunga yuzam yu kunju da samlu kari togudo, kidi karban togudo, cheba kaban togudo. Yu sosu takje cheni. Cheye te pe keshenpu de shaasi gora. Nika sara. Zomba chenpu kechi da yuzam laya rala takwa rala tane rangi kusum kiwa sosu samlu kare tangato lunga cheba kare udo se tanda kechi tagi che ure se ta tende majune ko nyiri tawa hina ndigi ordo nime ko tiri karche so ta tiri titi norso tende tikwa sasa yawa te saya chonso samlu tana ne yar dora tikwa nyoru che Yawa mar drea dure, chipshare dana. Dimadan ko karchone chore samne ko chache degri mato. Yar drea de sound dress ke homara. O disungar. Disigara. Nikwase. Tane range kosum gitima sewa la kebar chade. O sosu koso lunga yesum ge kende sigara timasre. Lunga yesum ge megewe kende to pa sewa che. Ni lunga yesum ge kona champagne Jawala soba o tezo to yongduwe che ti sebuchene yongduwe che gure so rangi kosum ge tima sewa la kebar chede. Chinche nye sondo iga nashi chinche dagi sewa nashi rwa nga zo. Shanla tsawala soba paana nye sondo me kewa che, lada mele kewa che rwa. Ane parbala soba, taame bala soba, chakdaan nyoru taane 아니 제가 나시 동에래 코알레 타로시에 또 제고래서 진제 예송다 제가 나시 동에래가 제가 나시 동에 내 타로와서기 타로와서기 랑이지 자꾸 왜서 어때 소소 자꾸야 레도 하시거라 여와 상해다 롱주 상해를 마음바나 가려용바데 소소를 제거해서래 대 손자 단다단다배 소소를 집샤다제 마음바나 대와 용게 줄에 배도 동해 용게 줄에 배도 그만두도 됐다고 그랬어 이 전에는 야로 상상도도 자꾸베 랑게 건다 겹수 교와 자꾸바를 송소세 상계게 소소 겹토가 제거했어 소소 군접체토가 제거했어 소소 제바데 랑자샤니 현다질 라와체체 제셔로체 생각하샤는 요야 말이 송거라 랑게 건다 겹수 교와 자꾸바를 송소세 오야 티치 그나
So here, then, again, at the present, the variety of conditions, fortunate and unfortunate rebirths, happiness and suffering, virtuous and non-virtuous thoughts and deeds, arise from differences in the degree to which one was previously accustomed to virtuous and non-virtuous physical, verbal, and mental acts. So we experience varying levels of sort of fortunate or unfortunate rebirths in terms of where we have taken rebirth. And even within that, we experience some will have greater happiness, some will have greater suffering, and so forth. There's so much variety in terms of the abodes that we take rebirth, the kind of bodies, the kind of things that we enjoy. So we can we can't even see all of the realms. We can see sort of our human realm and the animal realm, but things like the pure realms and so forth, we can't directly see. But we can, for ourselves, sort of directly recognize how it is that when we habituate ourselves to positive qualities, habituate ourselves to good things, we develop the kind of causes for good results. And on the other hand, if we are creating the causes for our own future suffering, that is what's going to bring about our suffering. We can see that it is due to the habituation that we have created in the past that we bring forth the sort of results that we experience. So here again, the kind of life that we have taken right now is dependent upon having accumulated the proper sort of causes to have taken this sort of rebirth. And if then we are looking to our future, it is dependent upon the kinds of causes that we are accumulating now, the kind of causes in terms of the karma of our body, speech, and mind that will lead to our future. So again, this is placing the emphasis on the individual rather than looking to some sort of deity, some sort of creator to be able to protect or save you. This is instead putting the emphasis on the individual. So here it says, therefore, these will arise in the same way in the future too. So it is with the past, the kind of causes that we have created leading to our present happiness and suffering. So too with the future, it's in our own hands. And this means that, as it says, continuing, therefore, with great effort, we must examine ourselves every moment and become skilled at rooting out physical, verbal, and mental defilements. So we have to become skilled looking at our own mind, being able to recognize what we are doing with our mind on a regular basis. How is our mind directed? What is it leading me to do? And we have to become skilled at recognizing our own sort of faults, those kinds of things that we want to eliminate within our own mind, as well as recognizing those sorts of good actions and trying to foster them, trying to increase them more and more. And so we need to become skilled at sort of recognizing the way that we are acting on a day-to-day basis, watching our own mind. So it says, continuing here, therefore, then we must aim to free ourselves from the sufferings of unfortunate rebirths and birth, aging, sickness, and death. So it is only through our own sort of actions, by abandoning harming others, by getting rid of, as we talked about before, our attachment and aversion, that grasping at an eye, that we can gain liberation from this cycling in samsara. But these are things that we have to do for ourselves. We have to engage in positive or negative actions in order to experience the results. We can't look at someone else to do it for us. We can't sort of place our trust in someone who's going to give us those kinds of results. Again, it says here, it is said that we must become our own protector and refuge. Quoting then from the Dhammapada that says, you are your own protector. Who else can become your protector? The skillful become their own protectors and attain their aims. So we have to act as our own protectors. We can't depend upon someone else to do it for us, as everything, the sort of external environment, our own bodies and so forth, arise due to karma, and karma derives from the mind. We then are responsible for what our mind is doing. We can't depend upon a kind of external being to do it for us.
好了，我这空整个了，我等你来是吧？我把缺几次数去，别的人缺几次数这边都来是，都拿来送下去了，缺几次数这边都，我告诉都是，当你打跟个人结是，说跟个人结果来是，说的说跟结不来是，当你打跟个人的减减的来说。 现在苏醒观的就是，说这边特别呢，你给我帮给我做，我考试给帮，他把头也给投了呗，人家有个帮头这个，也见都是帮，这头也给有的是买完呢，你让接头了，说嘛这呢，这边要嘛了，三节把这边蓝灯灯给我了，你现在叫人这里他都的这么这个我了。 Coba borwa lamga tengi wara. Ati sosu chegura mada sosu maje deni kyaptuya yomardo. Tani dagin goyen ge shenda sushin goyen de sosu maje vene shenda chig goyen cheni kyaptuya yomar esi wara. Sanje ke kyaptuya yomaro. Goyen zege sanje nye che de karise. Ishin shigwa temba de kecha namje chagu so sungwa. Sanje ke lenge de kyaptemba bodir taase. 딱 이마도 현다 동에 발락배 세야다 어 근데 동아때 뭐 추위 메주 신로에 동에 차게 메셀 추추에 메주 동에도 락배 밤에 버서야 메두 소거라 이게 떡배 현대도 봐 현실 때셔 메두 소야 메두 소거라 이연에 빼셔라 중이 템바 좋아죠 템벨 남과 등에 땡기 와래 얘네 시켜준 드러나 아니 겹도 그래 송구도 근데 아니 다근 거 이게 현다 수신 건데 아니 아긴 거여왜 해배 떠남 터번져서 소소 건접체네 소소 제거야 돼 상계 소배 최고조디 아버지랑 그 주바이나 근데 랑게 삼바께와 sem방원도 함이 고바 톱도 그래 네 다르와 톱도 그래 상계 고바 톱에 주투야 요래 그래서 강가 된다 강가 룹도 그래 소거라 아 개배 떠남 터버리죠 제당이 한테 일래서 저기 수수 제발로 아 rangi goyen ki rangi kamni rangi is sosu goyen re sosu kamgen de sosu kabar chegore so gara o she so ya o teach kushana.
So here, again, to read this quotation, citing the source for this from the Dhammapada, it states, you are your own protector. Who else can become your protector? The skillful become their own protectors and attain their aims. So really, we are our own protectors, our own sort of source of refuge, in that it is the causes we create that lead to various results. So if we want to get rid of suffering, we need to abandon the causes for suffering. If we want to get out of samsara, achieve liberation, or achieve the state of Buddhahood, we need to accomplish the causes for those particular goals. It's not as though the Buddha can do this for us. The Buddha teaches us the path, but there's no way that he can protect us beyond giving us that advice, giving us that teaching. So there are various sources that quote about this, that the Tathagata, the Sugatas, those who have gone to bliss, teach us what is necessary, but we have to do it for ourselves. So as it said elsewhere, the Buddha has stated, I can't wash away your negativities with water. I can't pull out your suffering like pulling out a thorn. and I can't remove your suffering in that way, nor can I pass my realizations to you. I can't give you what I have realized, but I can only lead you through teaching. So here again, as it says in this commentary, we need to become skilled in our own mind in recognizing the kind of things that are happening within our mind, the virtuous or non-virtuous thoughts that are arising. And that's really the way in which we are able to protect ourselves or be a source of refuge for ourselves. So as it says, again, the skillful become their own protectors and attain their aims. By understanding the sort of instructions of the Buddha, by having skill in working with our own minds, we are able to then accomplish liberation or Buddhahood based upon that kind of skill. And it quotes again from the Dhammapada saying that you are your own protector, you are your own refuge, meaning that we are the source of our suffering and our happiness. And so therefore we have to act as our own protector or refuge.
Yeah. Oh, that is it. Oh, that is you know, man, we were work so teach. Sorry. I'm just a man, I will not me, never chip here, Yaga Yuna, eat to nearly Capuyuna. I'm just cavaches are do this. I'm just cavaching, I'm just cavating man did this so Karen as a return it out do this. Captain Giora, Captain one at the man did it, Ora. Man, the soda, and can kept to this ora. As was a man, the lay, man, the savvy, and I could get Nasa Tragra. Man, the lay, made in Yahazi, there, my savvy in this ora. Whereas the Sanjay so shitty, and it's so saying only my Javiana, and Javaka Yomardo. Never man get ever over the dog and any sort of manishes. Man, the Yahazi, man, Yam Bukambukan container, Masan, and the Payaka Yomara. In the society. Nasa tried the chief and Jibble Jobeki, so the man did it, Ora. But in a singarazo to Mele Joviet and never to so the church did it, Ora. Because the papa, the toxic church is Ora. But it's over the sweat on that. You know.
Mhm. So there are many verses as well from the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life by Shantideva, expressing the same kind of idea. It's often expressed as like, if you are sick, say you have some kind of disease where you're really scared of dying, there's a possibility that you can die, and you go to the best doctor in order to find some kind of a treatment. If the doctor gives you medicine, you have to actually take the medicine to recover from your disease. If we go and find a very good physician and we listen to all of their advice, they get medicine from them, but we don't actually take that medicine, then it's not the fault of the medicine that we haven't recovered. So again, when it comes to Dharma, we have to practice it for ourselves. We have to like take the medicine in terms of actually putting into practice what the Buddha has taught. If we don't do that and we don't benefit from that, it's not the fault of the Dharma. It's really the fault that we haven't actually put it into practice.
And it, I need target to do get Cheva or do but then I'm busy ora. Sanjay Sombanashi. I need targets, so range Tawada to make it Chevabo so the social reshasam. Was so Tawada to make you so the social to be a reshasam. Oh, Sanjay Sombati Chevabo Palo, so to Deshane. You see, Matan Chevabo Palo, Cashitashana. Yo Maresungora, so say what is over. Oh, Tindeta Kellingachi, and she then Chebabo, oh, my boss, so in but Kellingachi in us. And at any target, you do get Chebabo do but then I'm kinese, and you sombanashi. Any rank to do with Chebabo, rank less and to do younger something, Gachi in us, Gora. Do but then I'm kine. Rank Kosumji never saw Kosumji. In Miguel Sobata, and in Yomobala Sobek to the Pasel go this ash. Lecture la Chamba, Shele, Legway over the Hedgehog, Mondulami Kovat of Jetta, Tarvat of Sanjay Kovat of Jelasoba, Legway and dead to the social backward, yes. Lecture la Bez, Shele, Shell Hogbash question, yes. Shenda Chebabolo location, get it so positive location, and it dash of the social. Yeah, then gang on the Pajo Kushara, teacher party, the language social check. Each and any Judan Cheba so mare, so reseg. And that to go. The man and the cook, Cheba made so much till about 200 Shiora. Cheba was a Cheba something about look as a cheshire the uncle. Agredo. Oh, the man and his made a look at my so much attention to the charo. Lenny Jiba. Cosum yen yeba sewa tangase. Lecture la besun shen le, che lagba she kwe shen se. Cheba bun den kenso le lagba che ngaran so, kewa la tuwe ta, ipa panya de kewa tuwe la soba shenda le besu lagba che nge chikwa re esi wara. Teta chune tanyi ki mende ba te kanda kaan dorwa tas, ram mende be tanda paan dorya panya tas wara. Debe te kanda kaan tokwan dulami koban tarwa tamje kimbala soba karina. Debe te kaan shi toba, mumbar deba nam rangi ki rub nebe se. Soso che tuku do se che na soso che resha. Che tuye do sam, che tuye mewa je ne ni kaya machi orida. Rub nebe dwa. Rub nebe koba tansa, lo le koba tang nying dub lega re se gora. Wata soso ke chimbara. Che tuye do sam, dulami koba tuye kuti re dwa. Chen le tsawa pang. Yana pemba tuwe te re dwa sam. Yawa toma meba nandewa che sheba tuzu, shenla tsawa cheba tuzu. Shakwa che re dwa sam, takwa che ku dwa sam sa. O tinte sheni ko, ami koban tuwe te ha ma guya ta. Rume tuwe ke yo mara, susu ma dung tar. Ina shita tarwa topse tuta. Amze kimba topse tuta sula. Susu rimbi loku resu. Nyingdu pewa ni gyur shen se, koba ta nyingdu shiru du resu. Asa de la jikden goba bo shen ka ne sem cheba bo tube tanda dambar jurus o tele jikden cheba bo jang che yo mares cheba bo ba yona digi me do se ti ke chebo mares so so ke chebo re se de tube de goba chon re se sanje so bana e mana ni te so so keba ke so so besu che le keba ke mandona ani cheba bo aka che so 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 re so ba te goba mandu ba re se gora asa de la jikden goba bo shen ka ne sem cheba bo tube ruba yondan dambara gyurwa yino se ya tiba de chisana.
So here, then the Buddha has taught that we are the primary creators of our own happiness and suffering. So here, continuing in the commentary, it says, those who take up the creation of their own happiness and suffering must clear away their physical, verbal, and mental faults and make exceptional efforts to cultivate good deeds. So here, as the Buddha has taught, in refuting a kind of creator, he's establishing that you are primary, in that the mind is the creator of what we experience, our happiness and our suffering. So here, when we become sort of aware of the primacy of our own mind, this leads us to sort of recognize that it's up to us to take responsibility for our happiness and suffering. So once we recognize that we are the ones who need to clear away those kinds of faulty faults of physical, verbal, and mental faults, and also make an effort to engage in positive deeds, then we sort of, as it says in the next sentence, once this happens, those who wish to cast aside what they don't want and obtain what they do want will feel empowered and confident in their ability to accomplish things. So here, when it becomes clear that we are the creators through our mind of the kind of happiness and suffering that we experience, then we will take care. We will see that it actually brings on this sense of feeling sort of empowered and confident. We have the ability both to eliminate those kinds of negative things that we do, as well as to cultivate sort of positive qualities and our ability to accomplish things. It's such that we recognize, well, if we cultivate that particular cause, we can accomplish the result. So there's a kind of confidence that arises in this recognition that you are going to have to do for yourself. So here, this then continues saying that again, for those people, the refutation of a divine creator and the establishment of the mind as the creator becomes ripe with meaning. Again, this is not, once we recognize that we have the ability, we are empowered to create the causes for ourselves, then it gives a kind of confidence. I'm going to train in these various stages, in the sort of stages of the path for the various types of beings, and I am able to actually accomplish those kinds of causes. So that's sort of what is meaningful about the refutation of a creator, and establishing mind as the creator is, again, it gives us this sort of confidence, this ability, recognition that we are the ones who have to do for ourselves. It's not just sort of for the sake of refuting, just to refute, but rather it is something that is incredibly meaningful for the individual practitioner to take up into practice.
Yeah. Tar rangi kosumji, de chela capsum zimba nam yesudwa, o kondo shabana shinsura, rangi lunga yesumgi, ni chuba ngaba papa, chuba samboten yarwa, chala chwa pa, yawa tuge. O tina shi, rangi tini tado zimba da tangzi, samsa ran takpan zimba, longju takpan zimba rwa, ran takpan zimba sumba takpan zimba. Sanche te takbaris tu tenge yin samsari shakura. Sumba takpan zimba, ran takpan zimba, sumba takpan zimba. Oh, there's membership, Midakware, some education, Jurgen, some 2000 Shanda Machine, Raware, Samutana. Oh, Gadus, Tawarish, Yomara, Samsa, Resam Lukona, Pegiora, some Lucia Madani, Kevasio Mara. Education, calling Jepet and Juan to give a tantum that they actually were traveling with our Imana, Ragbara, Samutana, can get all the Yora. And to think it's Mare, some Takachi, set to a less or Samsa. Oh, so say, also the message on ready, Rakme Metawashirati Hakura. The Rangi Kosumji, the day, Chola Capson Zimba Nam Genese, so say, Kosumji, Charlotte Sawa Pamba Tumne, Mondulami Kova. So say Tanzinda, Adon Zimba, some near Kendezini, Takban Zimba, Adon Zimba Latane, and it Chadala Sobaya Penny. Wakugura, Imidaba Samlata, Amgava, Ramaveta, Me Samsa, and the Samlutanico Tarota Vecura. But in Ashi, so Toma Mevana rank as Shishu Simesa, a Shishu in some ranget and that Trubalia, Shalat Savachakuna, Me Samsa. So sit Tangi say at what to get to Dalia, Shalat Savala Sovat and Juna, Digmare Sam, or Tiendazanko. Shen le rale shen hakba che gu de samsa pe chen be chu sam ta ge de chen ro shen de zo che gu de sam che de sam ta ne so so ko som lia ne do ta ne so so yu chung ngun jing che bu ka ge lam to ye re sha sam be ne so so be su dia che ru do ro o ti se do da rang ge ko som ki ta de rang ge ko som ge de che la se Edabu kondo sheba te debe shola kyapsun zimba namji tikyom gen wone te reto asamne namji sigwara chinaji tende ge chö nam yola chidar nebe chö gi chesu tashes chi nangi chö nam chidar ne kasure tenchin rebar chö nam la chidar nebe chö gi chesu tashes tenchin rebar chö yindu zanko yewe tenchin rebar chö la tene yehu tewa yoya Mikiwe tension driver John Wayoya. Tana Shiko, tension driver John Sonza, Judan Ken, tension driver John Sonza, Jibache, Kishi in Jurosha Yimba. Judan Ken, tension driver John Yinde, Rawa Tam Heba, Tosutan of China. Oh, tender some talk. Oh, tender get chunam, Tona Chidar never chuji cheso tashin. Chu Kurang Neta to be. De Takure, some Gure, Comcore, Sora. The chess of Tashi. The chess of Tashi. Jigdela Chagba answer. Jigdela Chaba, Jigdene, Lulajula Soba, Ya Jigde. So say, Anile Chagba, Takiwala Chagba. 내래 차고 롱줄을 차고서 강가차야와 이때는 차고다 이 메테오서 진행기 뛰내서 내 또선 단지멘티쇼도 이 메테오시에는 샤라 사와라 소고마 부용도 어때서 진행기 여인바 하고 하셔죠 어디 다루에 개인 바삼 오늘부터 산 다루에 개인 바삼 아야시 잡아보면 잡아시 샤라 현자라 소바 되네고 이하가 메고하고 주인삼마 진행지 봐 아무거네 여행 접시 지나서 그러라 이 메테 와서 진행기 뚫내서 좀 받지 않아서 배웠어 윤도 좀봐 침부에서 이 윤도 내랑게 메시날 니리니리 메시날 좀봐 침부 담바다 시시다 담바를 내버려 제진해서 나를 랭게도 고 예술을 메기와티 지고요 아삼 다르바 토베시도 주사고 요아삼 나지 고바 토베시도 주사고 요아삼 엠바셰 대인나시 시신도 좋아치마 아담이 고바 토지 처음에 벨람을 두고도 세와지기도 이 시신기 떡이다 그치 아둔 셈바다 땅진당 아제당 사도다 사당그 샹와도 두고도 누구면도 수수 따네 이메야 탑시세 오래서 그라 엠바다 시신 어디 이나 템바 시신 계셔버려도 그래서 자와 가르치기나 에다 티치기 삼사태고야 딱다 지금도 지금도 담 소소소소 따야 어이 기내쪽 이나다 레가시도 이나다 그디 이나 티케시버려라 단단 딩아죠 온도 셰버터 솔레스 어다 누구도 누구면도 템바다 시신단 템바라 네버 시신에서 에다 네버 남네서 어디를 내게 가서 대존에 쓰고라 링이 셰 마인 바다세 ran tensa ke ling dhab de shanda ke ko mare so so le tense yung go ardo yab shen ma yin ba ra se yab shanda ji ke tsem go jo o so so che de so so kem go ne de do asan yab shen ma yin ba ra to dani rani ji ye be to dani dang are rani le ye be osum ye ke che la 링다서 소소 사야게 계획시대 소소 땡사게 링이스 그는 아주 토르지 로서는 버루지 사kam버질 때들 돌리징에 수ገብ서레시도 어디나시게 링이스 소소 내서 대부지 내서 시리스 거라 계획시라 링다서 겹수체바 인베서 소소 땡사테다 내 소소 점경원에도 소소 제약이 최대 인삼 담로 코라 인베서 거라 가사 대남네 뱀베 라발라 로바 남지 초도 송소스 바산지 좀 된데게 소소소소리 시체 소소의 마음 보여야 소소 제고 예삼 소소 댄서데 소소 예삼 저는 예 그geb신게 소소 취약이 최대 소소 다외 최대 예삼사 근데 삼로 공개되이나 오토베이나 네 가서 가사 대남네 뱀베 라발라 로바 남지 초도 송소스 바산지 좀 된데게 최소시가 랍절 소싱가텔 롬겐게 초도 줘봐대 어디 hinso 다 소소 소송지 줘발이야 최다 링데 잠겐데 hinsam을 telling 니리니리 메시나 삼로 타게데 바산지 좀 된데게네 지주 라발라 롬겐 남지 초 hinso 샤스 야
So, here, then, for those people, again, who are taking as a refuge, so those who uphold as their refuge such physical, verbal, and mental practices will see inner and outer dependently arisen phenomena clearly and will successfully subdue their attachment to the world, their unhappiness, and so forth. So here, if one takes one's own practice of Dharma as refuge, recognizing that it is through abandoning harming others and working to benefit them, that we can gain the good rebirth and gain a good rebirth in the future, or by abandoning holding oneself as permanent, holding things as being in the way that we perceive them to be, as really existing as though they had some kind of stability or permanence to them, like holding on to our life as being permanent, for example. So even by contemplating things like course impermanence, even if we aren't yet able to recognize things as being momentary and so forth, this sort of recognition, our practice here, that sort of contemplation of impermanence allows us to recognize that things aren't going to last forever. They aren't something that we can be attached to or that we can place our trust in. And so here, again, if we as individuals are able to see the sort of various causes or the various practices of the different types of beings. So again, if we can see that if we get rid of this grasping at a sense of a self and the kind of attachment and aversion that arises from that, that will lead to liberation. Again, that's sort of a refuge for a person of middling scope. And again, if we can, moving beyond that, see that it is this holding ourselves as most important, the sense of an I and this kind of self-cherishing that arises from beginningless time. If we can see that this is actually the source of all of our problems, and if we can invert our thinking by instead trying to cherish others in the way that we normally cherish ourselves, we can create different results. So it is in dependence upon this recognition of dependent origination, that inner and outer dependently arisen phenomena clearly, so they see these clearly and will successfully subdue their attachment to the world, their unhappiness, and so forth. So again, it's by recognizing these sorts of types of dependent origination, that virtues lead to the resulting happiness and non-virtues lead to suffering and so forth, that it is attachment to an I and the kind of attachment to mind that leads to our suffering, our cycling in samsara. If we are able to recognize that it is that self-cherishing that is leading to all of our various problems, if we can recognize this in our mind regularly and are able to then with mindfulness and introspection, be aware of what's happening in our mind. This is the real kind of source of refuge. So again, continuing in the text, it says, they will then energetically sustain their mindfulness and introspection. Those who have seen this clearly, these sorts of clear relationships of cause and effect between the certain sorts of actions that we take with our own mind and the kind of result that brings about. So if the kind of mindfulness is that recognition of the relationship between cause and effect, and introspection is that faculty, am I actually doing that? Where is my mind going? What am I doing with my mind right now? And so those who abide in this way will take as their refuge and haven principally themselves, as well as their physical, verbal, and mental virtues. So here, when we have this kind of recognition, we will gain the sense that it is our own mind, as well as the sorts of actions that we create, that are really our source of support and protection. It is our real refuge, is not some sort of external thing, but rather our own actions of body, speech, and mind. And so these, the Buddha has said that these persons are the best students of what the teacher has to teach. It is that kind of recognition that our own actions, our own karma of body, speech, and mind, particularly that virtuous, those virtuous actions are our real source of refuge, are our haven, our sort of shelter from the storm of our various non-virtues. These types of individuals who recognize this are the best kind of students.
Oh yeah. That in do kunchara, and the Tade shed a kunchara. Darian Doles, Kunkaos, Sanjay Makunka or Sungudwa. The Davana, Tadang arms, and the Sanjay Chumden, the sugar carrying bomb. 대자로 산지 좀 된데 냥을 대배 뒤는 라세 아니 링당하세 소수 댄서데 예 소사스는 메도라 어 댄서 소수 이바다 아니 겹다스 소수 겹야데 겹자 소수 겹버치고 아니 겹다 최링당 소수 제가 최대 링당라와 예 소수 링당라오레스 최링당 최겹 최겹다 그 제 최대로 한 겸게 된 인상 영문에 때 인상 뭐라 링셴 마인바다 텔레셴베 링셴다시 에서 셴다시다 네 겸네 겸게 셴다시 여바 마인 삼데 삼게 겸셴 마인바 겸셴 여바 마인바 마인바라 네바 테다네세 아ton다 소스 개침 부임바 어 셴다시 로리삼 근데 봐 셴라 템바 소 마인바 대단해 디타데서 대단해 디드라인 세카레 네켈론 라발라 로반 데바 남제 포도 교로스 kelon chene ga kelon laba la loba deba nam chodo jubayes kenye yanate kenye laba la loba deba nam chodo jubayes what the charge yira jeso son bata ros what is
So then, as a source for this, coming from the Buddha's sutras, and this then is as the finer points of discipline states, this being a sutra. So again, it says, Ananda, consequently, whether I am here or not. So speaking when the Buddha was alive, whether the Buddha, it is at that time of the Buddha's presence or not, those who take their selves as their haven, their selves as their refuge, the practice as their haven, their practices as their haven, the practices as their refuge, finding no other haven and no other refuge, they are the best of my monks in training. So here, this is really, again, emphasizing the importance of the individual. The real kind of protection and refuge that we have is ourselves, our own sort of mind. The practices that we engage in are our source of refuge or protection or haven. So the individual is important. The individual themselves is responsible for finding refuge or haven in their own practice. And so here at the end where it says then, they are the best of my monks in training, this is speaking specifically to that audience, but we could apply this, these are the best of my sort of novice monks in training or nuns in training, any kind of disciple in training, those who take as their real refuge their own practice, that is the best kind of disciple of the Buddha.
oh yeah 다 공도 쉐바타 다 공도 마부셰 사라 공도 쉐바타 지된 거바 본 데바 당스 지된 거바 본 데베 출루 마부 요르도 오케이 데바 당스 맨데베스 지된 거바 본 데바 본 메베스 소소레 데바 본 오레 삼자게 나바타 보라 니 젠다 소소치 야, 공도 쉐바다 지된 거바 본 데바다 맨데베 추ye 예수 주고 남라스 지된 거바 본 지된 소아보 아셰 와 제바보 본줄라 소바 셴단 데바들 거라 지된 공도 쉐바다 지된 거바 본 데바다 맨데바데 남바다 남바시샤시 맨데베 추ye 예수 주고 남라스 라랑게 감담 메베 원래 가실라 담바다 뼈바 최치지 원남라 개버를 쳐요라 어지된 제법은 되바다 메데바니엘이야 마상 가실이야 그래서 최치야 단지 삼을 땅단다 둘이야 제가 전부 여봐요 서거라 가실라 담바다 뼈바 삼을 땅단다 제가 기다려 최치지 제원남 최세대 컨딜리바 문주시에 들으라 아니 남라 개벌이 최선 요레스 무슨 요레스 양지다 양지된 거바보 여바다 매번 되베 지다 제대바 남라세 지다 미망부실이야 삼줄라 대삼지 개벌은 세세 매바라 하트바야 나시세 라본라버리 지요레 지된 시바본 되바다 매데바세 수다 개바 매게 소리 들려 요레스 요시다 이된 거바보 매베 따두라 고시 최선 여바 망보 양세 이된 거바보 세데 매베 졸이야 따두 가가 야부 생겨서 이나 양서라 그 지된 거바보 더바 남다 삼주 개발 뭐세 삼바다 쳬발에 시랑 뭐세 쳬부라 매게 인다본다보 텐데 여기도 세 뭐세 제 대사 매바야 망보시 나세 지린 지된 거바보 맨데자 레상에 디두기 제바본 데바 마보시라세 이분 기도라 수이시 점바 예베세 지된 제바보 캐멜렌 바이나야스고라 지된 제바보 신다 속에 원줄에 속고요 마레세 소소케 침부레 소소레 상에 치수로고레세 이데 삼게스 지된 제바보 맨데자 레상에 소소 레상에 요하게 디두 연고레세 제바본 데바 가실라스 셈지된 제바본 데바 세트라 가실라 이분 이쪽라 전시 유베세 오 된지된 제바본 마드나야 소소 셈데 소레스데 소소 셈다 르가 제바 소체제 고정거 와라 어디 되스가 수신 좀봐 예배 제바보 메드바 참마 양변바 답이 제다와 시가라 인사 어디름 어떤다 아직 들으서 지대 제바보 만드나니 가수라 나스틱스 개멜레게 아 개멜레 지대 제바보 개멜레나 나스틱스 두자르 셰다르 땅게서 뛰어라 어떤데 말해서라 제바보 개말이나 그 군주도 소소소 제제 이거 봐야 개와 두에 쳐셔 아베 샤치베 자주심 코야라서 버터서 빼야고 지요라 어때인데 그 장변나시 채도와시 가야면 지내 제바보 매생겨라 와 네 다딱바 매생겨라시 근데 채도와시 말을 그래서 그 개와 두에다 이거 봐야 돼. 그것도 써봐. 그래서 내 친구 제저 내가 하고 싶어도 그래서 어디 인도지 않고 전다주 따다들려 제바부 개멜에 나 내지 제다와 양변나시 레좀데 개멜에가 가게 매기시래서 근데 말했대 저 최신도 아버지 개는 게 어려서라 이번 기로라 최신도 좀 봐야বে 제바부 맨데바 참마 양변바 답이 제다와 시가라 인세 내 좀데 매식 기티긴 대부티도 요 말했는데 제다 응원해 들어와 요 개와치는 대부 연구를 대부 대와 미개와치는 대부 미개 연구를 세대 양닭 배 따와로 봐 녹배 따와 말와 뒤서서 정말 양변바 답이 제다와시 제바보 멘토바 양변바 답이니 지네 제바보 되고 말에 껴와가시 되고 말에 좀데 되고 말에 센들이 중앙에 다와서 랑중기 랑신기 중앙에 오늘 메시지 김내 끼버래 팀마다 신다 상을 마동서 그러시오라 어디나신 말해서 오라 남보산지부터 내 좀데서 오래 껴와가시 쓰오래 잠바다 써와 캠페인 써와 치요래 어디 제는데 제다와 리뷰 말아 근데 삼교가 말해서 제바보 메도바 참마 장변바 답이 제다와시 가라 인세 야 어디부터 질라나 아무도서
So here, following this quotation, it says, let's compare those who assert a divine creator to those who follow a teaching that does not assert such a creator. So when we look at their beliefs, we find quite a difference in how they conceive and express their teachings. So again, there are many sort of followers of spiritual traditions who assert that there is a kind of creator. And then there are those who assert that there is no such creator. And when we look at the two of them, there's a great difference in terms of like how they understand their teachings to arise and how they express their teachings and so forth. And so here then, though, yet among those with a spiritual faith in general, whether they assert or do not assert a divine creator, we find fewer clear differences when we examine their thoughts and deeds. So here, among those with a good understanding of the view and tenets wherein a divine creator does not exist, many have thoughts and deeds that are indistinguishable from those who do assert a divine creator. So here, the way of comporting oneself, whether one asserts there is some kind of divine creator, or like the Buddhists say, asserts that mind is primary, and holds one's own actions to be most important. There are some who do assert a divine creator, but still think that their own actions are important. So they don't necessarily have a way of comporting themselves or deeds that are totally different from those who do not assert a divine creator. So for among those who do not assert a divine creator, many do assert virtuous and non-virtuous karma to be the creator of happiness and suffering. And these people consequently strive to eliminate sin and cultivate virtue. So here, there are those that are, we might term them as being like agnostic, that they don't assert any kind of a creator, but they aren't necessarily espousing a kind of nihilist view like the Charvakas. Again, the Charvakas would say there's no karma, there's also no past and future lives, and there's all sorts of things that they don't assert and are really fall into a nihilist kind of a view. But there are those that actually, even though they don't assert a creator, still act in a certain sort of way. And maybe it's based upon a correct kind of view. A correct view meaning that someone believes that good sort of causes, actions will lead to happy results, and non-virtuous, harmful actions will lead to suffering results. So continuing, so thus, even if a creator were to exist, these people would be acting in accord with his intention. So even if they don't accept that there's some kind of a creator God, they might be acting in a way that they would believe is with their intention. But not everyone who does not believe in a divine creator is a nihilist like the Charvakas. So there are, again, those sorts of agnostics who might still believe in the importance of individual actions and not really fall into a nihilistic view. They think that there is a connection between the sort of cause and result, as opposed to a Charvaka where it's like this being is newly arisen. There's no sort of, we can't point to any particular causes. There aren't causes that we are creating for our future rebirths and so forth. So they don't see a need to cultivate any kind of good qualities over lifetimes and so forth. But Buddhists do not assert a divine creator, but they do assert a teacher who is a refuge, one with power of having completely eliminated faults and realized all good qualities, fulfilling others' aims. So here, there's then those who, even if they don't assert that there is a divine creator, they still have a sense of there being sort of order to the universe. Like, for example, Buddhists that would say that causes accord with their results, and thereby we need to create our own sort of causes.
tene kyangpe batabu maare shara, karesna. Kansa detane kede chebabu yonanse, ka chebabu kende chi sangbe songenshi, de yoba yonanse ge wardon. O chebabu ya wonju da sangbala soba, chebabu imba shara. Yene tezo ko, tanda chebabu mendebe kansa ke, cheba, shanla tsawa pan pemba chubi. Ambada nyingi chanju semla soba komgenji ne elia ko o pe ya wudu samsan tengri mato o de ya umedo ngai chebabu yin sam keleng me sam kon sakma o komba mababa yung ma de sigara asa deda ne kede chebabu yona te komba da ya ni che yong su temba 그런 공부다 채워서 tumba 내가 지금 요래서 오라 양래 사업아 뱀바도 잠바다 얘기 장주 semla 사업 공대 이제 그런 공부다 tumba 그런 텐데 잠진되게 뱀바도 원데 계시 고라 이 채용서 tum바를 줘봐 요아시 이노세 아 이노세 아마 다게세 어디도 잘하시라 어디지 람나
No. So here, sorry, I read a little bit ahead, but so there are those who do not assert a divine creator, but many do assert that virtuous and non-virtuous karma are the creator of happiness and suffering. And so these people consequently strive to eliminate sin and cultivate virtue. So here again, this is getting at that even not all of those who don't assert a divine creator fall into a kind of nihilistic view. There are those that still assert that there are certain causes that lead to certain effects. And so therefore, even if a creator were to exist, for those that don't accept them, these people would be acting in accord with his intention. So again, not everybody who does not believe in a divine creator falls into that kind of nihilistic view like the Charvakas.
지대의 제바부 인식의 지와라 얘네 장바 얘네 장바 지대 제바부 말했어 남바도 지고 남바다 서와 샹라 서바 티나시 게시나 장바 투 계그를 마도 저 장바 nga 제바부 엘레 마도 삼 얘네 소알라 스툴라 마바버 소티데 용 말했어 거라 일단 타르침베 간사 망보 요르도 이나 딱바랑 주데 텐데 남베 켈링 말마도 전다가 제바부 인생에 아산텐데 여세그도 angbatabun nangbake kelenge war yene kote karso o tesoge ya lola pula sawada mabawat dege rege mare so at da ge samluda temba ngarazo ina me yabu chenge chine sanjo ile yabu tenge ni yabu de samgir mado itujare ke samgir mardo o tina shiresa namba da ge jigde je cheba bu mendo kya namba choge jigde cheba bu de marese 방도 타르치베 챤데 트루베 투니 챤게 캡틴 바보 방바다 또바 타르치베 네바다 투 영게게 아니 캡틴 바보 상게다 테다 조르바다 에 뭐마이 바야 체라세 조르바 이 시와 아부데 라마부틀레 챤미세야 인데게 돌이야 또 틀레 영게 인데 켈링 거라 이제 와도 트라부서게 틀레 라 미세 토니샤이 미세 코니바 영게게 와서 잔데베세 이땐 거바보다 차트베 담레 조사예베 삼주야 여도스 다 다부다부다 치고 일에 소아탐나티 미세티 용그리 삼자 인데티 와라 이네코 요상에다 내진지된다 상모탐지 제바부티레세 레용마 비켈링고 마르와 일단 미더시네 고 치치리 로바치야다 인데 용비 와르도 어디 인디코 대달라 쳐발라 서바서 말았다나 소남사나 대왕게 그래서 소남 템베 미 삼번 남자 둘세네시 인데 용기 와라 어디 얘네고 탐제 야왈다 이달다 전주다 상부치 냠바치 사모 속에 지나 이 마디르도 남바체나 지대 감나 또와도서 삼마시 원래 용으로 야 어디시구나.
So here again, not everyone who does not believe in a divine creator is a nihilist like the Charvakas. So even if say there were to be someone like Ishvara or Brahma or some sort of being who has created the world, and if the sort of beings within that world, even if they didn't have a kind of faith in that, it's not as though so if among those who do not assert a divine creator, creator. There are those who still assert that virtuous and non-virtuous karma are the creator of happiness and suffering. And so they engage in a way where they are striving to eliminate non-virtue and cultivate virtue. And so if even if a divine creator, like someone like Ishvara, were to exist, and these beings were acting in this particular way, that doesn't somehow like contradict that divine creator. It's not like the sort of assertions of those who do assert a divine creator would be undermined by these actions, or that they'd be displeasing that divine creator. That sort of divine creator would only think well, one would think, if someone were acting in this sort of a way. So here again, though, Buddhists do not assert a divine creator, but they do assert a teacher who is a refuge, one with the power of having completely eliminated faults and realized all good qualities, fulfilling others' aims. So here there are those types of beings, countless different beings who have perfected their own power and ability, who have developed, who have cultivated these qualities of method and wisdom to their highest, with this sort of special ability, the kind of like enlightened activities that allows them to bless sentient beings and so forth. They have these kinds of special abilities, but they don't assert a sort of omnipotent kind of creator deity, one where one is able to sort of give happiness or suffering, or the results are not due to the causes that we have created, but are instead just bestowed by some kind of a deity. So here again, although there are perfected beings, a Buddha, a teacher, is a perfected being who is a source of refuge because of his teachings. They don't have the sort of power to create the world in the sense of a creator deity.
Oh yeah, oh damn. But then I number to them our number zero. When you change your lot of that, so out and you don't never miss a you get chili, miss a you get in the kelly good day. There's so much you need. The bubble killing my resora. How much they do sometimes at the chair, you but you are sung and dry, you but on nurturing you then sang a kanga. You come by you in the social but to this killing my resora. The Dana number to them our number. When you change your lot of that, I am Judanji, Jibabur Mendelas. Sanje Chumdende, so Sanje Namjas, Sanje Chumdende, Tabu Sanje Tarshibe. Tab the Shirun you got Tarshibe, Sanje Tamibo Yorno, and Nuba Cheverchembe. Yanda Bay Captain Babo, Jamne, Tartu to Yanda Bay Captain Babo, yes. Captain Babo, Jamne Tartu, yes, did do grace. In a Jude Chebabo Mendebata, Jude Jebabu. Mendebatars or Jene Chebabo Dugmar, Angelus of Sanje Drame by your watch it on or did you touch him make you do what you there? So you think Chebabo Dugmar is what Mendebatars did not say so. And then Namje Jene Gobabo Debe, Sangbala Soba, or Tezoya, Hachambo Tezoya. You then Gobabo in Bango with you then Gobabo in Badi Kelly, Madamado. Deba Gichiri, Sangbala Sobateso, never came Kumares, never my nose. Then I could jitan Shababu young Mares, telling Mares, oh, yeah, but
So here then, Tibetan and other Buddhists also assert a spectrum of deities who can intercede in matters of wealth, lifespan, peace, growth, power, fierceness, and so forth. So here, again, we need to distinguish, because there are those who assert some kind of a creator deity, do so that in a way that this creator deity has the ability to create the world and its inhabitants by a sort of thought, whatever they think, and they are then able to create. Whereas Buddhists would assert that there are countless perfected beings who have developed their abandonments and realizations to the fullest, have completely perfected the method and wisdom leading to them becoming a perfectly complete being, but yet they don't have the ability to create the world or to give happiness and suffering to others. So here, although there are these different types of deities, they are not an ultimate source of refuge. Generally, we can say that they do exist. Beings like Ishvara or Brahma, they might have certain sort of special qualities that they have developed, but they don't have the ability to protect us or be a source of refuge, or in terms of creating the world and its inhabitants. Although we can say that generally they exist, they don't have the kind of power that they are imbued with by these other sorts of traditions.
뭐야. 오늘 낭배 쇼남 소스 다들 오늘 오버고 요라신다. 낭배 쇼기 나려. 쇼남 소스로 지된 거바본 더발라 루테 마셔 버세. tene chiden goba bo yoba la lutin ma she she ani elia takche mambu chani chiden goba bo yo mare yo me tene samlo mambu tane takche mambu chi do asero ana nambe shon nam so chiden goba bo do ba la lutin ma she ba ida timba ke malam ba she yo se malo she ela takba ma do che de te yo me de takba ma do che ne Esum long to us and she then sheba bo yobala. Esum long ane. Shanjola shetan war sheba. Mayenam yam nase. Shanji then sheba bon deba to zulia. A tangbuche nenich. Papachi yor wasigora. Marveser. Yam nase. Dar tagba sheba ne chiden goba bo. Yeme tonla chidar neba. rangi shebe tendo yingis o ti mare sora agwa cheba de ngone jitengi nelu longjola soba ranzo sosu kidila lenye la soba tezo kande shwa yin samne e cheba bode e chede e chembure dora soyu kyu kala tene yongu yobate o teda tagwa cheba ne jiden goba bo yeme yonla chidar neba rangi shebe tendo yingis ngone de karina ke hakoye tondalya takche chigware sigora mato shenda tulia oke do dechido makao chone rike mare sora da tagwa cheba ne jiden goba bo yeme gitan la chidar yeme gitan chidar neba tar yoba ina meba ina ro tulia ko rikbe takche che yordo chidar neba kin range shebe tondo yingese Oye nechu kari nati soso hakoya tanda cheba shigi ware shara. Inji shenla tangwe maye no so shenla shedan she kondu chene ipa tangbu chene takpa cheba maare se wara. Ila takpa cheba, taksha cheba maare se. Tumba sanje nyeji ange songba namla ya yusha namje se chidan nangbe lu chene. Tumba sanje song shebe song tazula ya taksha chene kele ware se. Sanji rangi song yorile, keba song yorno. Songse sama kailing yomare, sanji song shaba, rangdega do mambo yora. Sanji che song du kap kavliya, tuche sambana, kule tishena yabu medu sam, lota kesare samdi, kongde ni ako ta yo song shaba yore. Kansa ta yo si chirube sambana shi, kansa gashile ta yo song shaba. Kumbu ngani kuru, kokwa bane kansa ko sidi. Bungabude kurna shiri, ti nalo yenge kansa de nalo liyo rese, de rawe ta yoba songo yora, ko kabri da yoba songo yore, kabri tuje ngashi liya ta yoba masuna, yo marisne ko chedal longo yore, o sanji ti songo doa ta kage me doa sam, nga kora chida me wasi kodu yore mato, rawa do tuba me tene takwa yo sam tende yewa cheto yo marwa, o tende tele da yo song shag yore. Every young Kasha Joshua, I heard Wesley, I hear Maso Meva Maso Kagashu, Lema Jebse. I go years and then, Tata Lava the Pendugora. Mes and I go Meva the Kundu Chitu Yomara, Chedaloya, Yakayore. This the Kemason sugar, Lema Jora. That's Chiruban Gashigo Sanjay Tele, len tabio mares, len jamatures, len jamado marangaranzola, Samson Keshiti, Kaga Deko, Mambo Yungdua, Zatsola Matishan, Dresina Madamaris, and then Zatso Mason Tontache, Deko Yumiora. The Kashelia Tayo Mares, Savage in the somewhere Yorito. But the end, you say come to Sambas, Anjegi, choose on the Tanga Pacho del Tanda Karishana Kado, Mahabana Karido, Tanda Samba Karido, come down, Never Kanga Kingiora. Kanga Kindu and Kapkavia, Duje Corona Papa choose on Shaviora. Kanga Lungu Nesuchi, Sanje Kimbana, she young dog with Chuchi Kangal Shashana. Kangal Panto will never your mother. We said the Samlina Liako, come to Sambata, Mevata, Maji Pakshat and Ramada Yora. In the Koran Pendo, you were so good, mother. Well, Pendo may never care so the children. The Madir don't hurt this on the co. Until the native Mamboson, a year. Webe Wangi. In the Trandition Shabatazo, Pelegi or Mara. Tutamawa she and good one, Balia. Dotaba Chita, but Chitra Mawa Sera. The Umaba Semjabas, what is so good to je. But the bully mill some dram and the Pasha dram and the Mabuyosa. The drama does so shat as a casualty lola babata. The pendo share, casualty lola boyo. Uncle, who the shoot to go, Mar, some Tamu to son and make Uncle share to Marwa. Lotaki at that shit today in your country. There's a Sanjay so bechulia. And then get them on we around the regime Pasha. So the Karahaku with Tipasha and Pajo depending on Nevina, take some tang Marwa. Ako to be a Yomara. Or Tinde Yomar, this was the Randing at the Mambu or a Sanjay so shebe sole. Uncle Kele Kumari Sanjay Rani Songutwa. You know, Dagam Kenam, just in a young as a lude. The jet of SS Levatar and a loss. Also, some Luta, I said, I will do something, Kelly. Yamichi, I will do something, Shash or some Gora. At the mountains, yeah, what did you learn?
So here again, nevertheless, among those powerful deities, none is a divine creator of the world. Also, Buddhas such as the Blessed One are teachers who show the way to genuine refuge and are the ultimate refuge in terms of having given teachings. But the Buddha is not a divine creator of the world. So Buddhists refute the assertions of other traditions that a great deity such as Brahma or Ishvara is the divine creator of the world. So although there are Buddhists who assert the existence of great deities, they do not accept that these deities are creators. So here, then a sort of question arises that Buddhist scriptures disagree with the proponents of divine creators and spend much time analyzing this issue. So are Buddhists hostile toward others' philosophical stances? So here, the point of these analyses is to understand for oneself whether a divine creator exists or not, to engage in that kind of analysis. It's not to generate hostility toward others. So here, again, when it comes to the Buddha's teachings, the Buddha has asked us to analyze his teachings, to examine with logic, and based upon having found that they are logical, having found that they accord with reality, then in turn, we are going to accept those teachings. So again, it's not just sort of accepting out of, oh, well, this is what the Buddha said, as will come later, that the Buddha himself has said that analyze my words well, as one would analyze gold, through melting, refining, and polishing, and then adopt them. The skilled should not engage them out of admiration or for other reasons. So we shouldn't just take up the Buddha's teachings just because out of respect, or just saying like, oh, well, this is what the Buddha said, so this is how it is. But rather, we are required to analyze and engage with the teachings of the Buddha. And this also means that we are needing to understand when the Buddha is teaching something that is definitive and when the Buddha is teaching something that requires interpretation. So here, going back to the text, it says the teacher, Buddha, stated that his disciples should thoroughly examine his teachings and should thoroughly examine his teachings well and accept them once they have eliminated any doubt. So the Buddha did not want his disciples to engage with his words out of faith and admiration alone, accepting them merely because the Buddha spoke them. So here again, we need to examine for ourselves and also recognize that the Buddha's teachings were given with a particular purpose. The Buddha teaches in accordance with the sort of dispositions and needs and wants of beings. So we can see that we need to also understand whether a teaching is definitive or provisional. In some texts, we see that the Buddha asserts the existence of a self, that there is a self who accumulates karma, who experiences the results. It's sort of like the self and the aggregates are likened to sort of a master and a servant sometimes, or we see other teachings wherein the Buddha is making it clear that there is some kind of a self, but those are only sort of provisional for those beings to whom teaching selflessness would be dangerous or would be unwise for some reason. If some beings are taught the teachings on selflessness too early, they're not able to handle it. They go into a kind of nihilistic view based upon that. So the Buddha teaches in accordance with the situation, teaches contextually. There are times when the Buddha said, yes, there is a self, and taught in order to lead those who needed to hear that. There are those times where the Buddha said, no, there is no such self. And there are times when the Buddha would be asked a question and remain silent on it, not giving an answer one way or the other. So some might look at that and say, well, oh, the Buddha doesn't know or isn't able to answer in those situations. But it's actually about knowing skillful means and knowing when to teach a particular kind of a topic. So the Buddha knows everything is omniscient, but he also understands then the sort of needs and predispositions of various disciples and teaches in accordance with the kinds of needs of those beings, their previous imprints, the kinds of disposition that they have. And so we can see in the way that the Buddha has taught that the Buddha expects us to, as it says here, wanting to enhance his disciples' intelligence. The Buddha told them to accept his teachings only after examining his words closely. So we have to see the way in which we too have to engage in that kind of analysis, and that definitive teachings are difficult to recognize, in part because of the fact that there are different philosophical schools. We have to understand the sort of perspective of the Vaibhashikas and the Sutra school, the mind-only school, and the Madhyamakas, and so forth, and see that those teachings accord with the minds of various different beings. So there's the danger of sort of having the wrong thought arise in relation to a Buddha's particular teaching. And so we should recognize that often we're just sort of giving teachings not necessarily knowing the kind of dispositions or needs of various disciples, but we should ideally have a kind of understanding that the Buddha taught in accordance with those needs and dispositions of various disciples. And we ourselves should examine and analyze the kind of teachings of the Buddha, not just accept them out of respect for him.
Tongba ni se do rangu ne trebe tongba se cherche jin de ko se songwe ora o to su nangba kangwe ke ling marwa de ka sem jamba da ne ta ada ne do te ba to su ke ling marwa bo che ke melge mambu yordo o asire o tentere se ka to ka di umaran ju bale ya ke ling malen ke chi ora to ko ka sura vipashi sura vipashi ni vijanwa de se o tentere se o konju tangan de ma tu ke ling me do o che ko te ka sura di member sanje song shan dal ten shan da se ke ling ora lo le chu tu yo mar tin de ko su tang de de se ora sanje song yo de se o ye na ko tang de de se ye tu che de le kon ne song ba re ye tan da de song ba na she ta ta ma re ye kong ba shan de tu che shan da le kon ne song ba re se kong ba she se de shan da pa chang go re se chang de da nge de do ma bu yu ra na be lu le ya nge de gi do se ne ko song ba na she ta le ta ra nge ba ke le cho ba de si ora 장대진 도스도 괴배원다 두제기 삼배 감불라 뜨네 도시가 마부지고 헬레고야 요 말도 그래서 장대진도 당해되긴도 오세 어디 장대진도 마부 열어 어디 존재 남발에 그다 마부 용해 뜻이라 이제 소소소 로 삼로 당다다 로 시럽지 세다 뜸바 저 소시된 가셔 대야부도상 가셔 대야부도상 가셔 대야부도상 rimbi ko tardu telia chierwa shamadya boshensunane tamadege kyadam cheche imare tireside ko tadelia shundu no tigone isarisa nia loga cheru dura razu tende de chibarwa tende ma to ze keshing marde ya le tu tamata ya shendu do o de chilamna
Mhm. So, for example, like emptiness, as it is taught in the Perfection of Wisdom sutras, this is not something that all of the various schools within Buddhism accept as being definitive teachings. So, here, for example, the other schools, even down to the Vaibhashikas and the Sautrantikas, the Vinyavada, the mind-only school, as well as the Svatantrika autonomous, they would say that these cannot be accepted as literally definitive, that actually the teachings that appear in the Perfection of Wisdom sutras are those that are provisional, that are actually leading to another meaning. And so it's not as though all of the various philosophical schools accept the teachings in the same way. So it is, again, due to the various sort of dispositions of these various disciples that the Buddha has given different teachings. So it is according to like the mind-only school or some of these others, that the Perfection of Wisdom sutras were taught for a particular reason, but it's ultimately to lead sentient beings to another kind of an understanding. They would say that those teachings, as they are given there, can lead to a wrong kind of understanding. And so it's actually the case that we need to learn in accordance with our minds and sort of progress in the way that you progress when you begin a course of study. You don't really know anything, but through exposure and through being introduced to things that accord with the way that you were thinking, you are able to develop a kind of understanding over time. We see this as one proceeds through the monastery and so forth. But the kind of way in which the teachings are understood to be either interpretable, those that need interpretation, or definitive, varies among the various philosophical schools.
다되죠 더 딱바 제반은 지된 거바버 연매 떨래 지더네바 대시에 그베 대던달을 송구요 얼마도 양라 당화시바 말해셔로 좀바 산제 얘기 송바 남라야 이제 남제 딱제 제고래 송요래세 다네 소소 딱제 제네 단제 송바 주세도 제네 이시마시에세 열레 딱제 제네 소소 로래야 바바 어디 오늘의 삼사지 그게 인도나니 티켈레 티마도 켈레 고마레세 요라 안에 태좀 쳐봐나 켈레 그 벌송샤 송송신에세 근데 대다를 송바다를 근바라니라 유제 티가죠 런다감 캐남게 서제타베 세신도 레버달랑아이가 라와체 쿠시메서 메드라 간제로 그바체베니세 강가케 멜레세 소소소 딱제 제송야데 조치네코 소소로다 참마 참세세 티레 조치네코 소소시레 페야 된다로 예 라브 강가 다가라 차샤고르다 스나니 티라임베레 삼마도 샨다 삼다요 마라 게 라브 도졸라 타셰치 설 밥소나니 케라 이바도 나레 테바이시 랍제 삼마냐고 마레 손데 코란 제바체 삼로코요라 소소 제바체 삼로코도 코란레 셰바요라 남제 요르바 시로 요르바 소소 빠조 시로 야게 요르바 오데 예나 메나사 카데 예나 삼텐데 제바시데 소소 시로 고네 고도 페던달레 아제치 송고라 아과 제고 마르다 로다데 녜라보 참마데 인 삼tös나 아니고 테라 예치 제마도 삼로코로 고고 마르 시로 요르바 멜 강가 시로도 로 짜게 던달이야 네 딱제 제나 아과 제하데 소소레치 딱제 제가 시로 여바 데 딱제라 제체베나 시로 고네 고도 페르고라 어디 손잡고 당제 지에도 계시모레세 이송거마도 녜하 고고 말에 로스 결론다감 캐남게 결론다면 캐버서 결혼서 하고 그래서 색제다에 세신도 셀리아 제바 숨전에 색바 메타다 제바 뚝길히티 색제 따로와 돌파 다네 해요 메타에 숨겨라 세대야 보시 임바다디선테 숨겠다고 한다 멜레시 짜고 있어라 색바세 제바스 돈이 기대야 에메드 삼거라 따로와스야 레 참으요나 도든들 따네 하고 있어라 이제 다에 세션도 레버 따라 나에 가스 나와샤에 매밤 생기 개발 좀 해샤스 이 때는 개랑 그래 당시 전에 깨면도 나 개랑 그래서 이제 세진이나 자신부터 대신에 섭섭지기도 와서 내가 라도 되고 영화치다 레 가서 기디기 주가래 가데 좋아서 패키지 보내 되어다 근데 그 당시 제고래서라 나와샤에 매밤 생기 개발 좀 해샤스 생겨요 나와샤에 그시르면 생겨요 인도스는 줄면 되고도 단계로 그셔셔베서 대송과 참아 많이 했어라 그시르면서나 나와샤에 매밤 생기 개발 좀 해서 산제를 매바 개발 유배 원도 셔봐다 이 멤버도 언가 대 산제된 가서 뜸바래 대소장에 개랭에서 된대전에 현다 내주전에 말해서다 나와샤에 매밤 생기 개발 좀 해서 대송에 됐다 저들은 당시 지역에 외국의 손주 콜로트 제일 팽기도 와. 그 당시 시에는 싫어 권내 권도 배 개발이 왔다. 왜 대지교나 근데 그래. 뭐 로지에서.
So, here, again, the point of all of this analysis is for us to come to our own conclusions. So it's not, again, to generate hostility toward others, but the Buddha, the teacher, the Buddha, stated that his disciples should thoroughly examine his teachings well and accept them only when they have eliminated any doubt. So it's not as though the Buddha gave these teachings just for us to accept them out of respect or sort of thinking like, oh, he's called the teacher, so I should just accept these kinds of teachings. But rather, it is in order for us to eliminate any kind of wrong views, and also to enhance his disciples' intelligence. Sorry. So here, the Buddha did not want his disciples to engage with his words out of faith and admiration alone, accepting them merely because the Buddha spoke them. But he gave these kinds of teachings in order that his disciples might enhance their own intelligence. And so the Buddha told them to accept his teachings only after examining his words closely. So we need to engage with the teachings in this way, wherein we're sort of willing to actually chew on it, to really use our own intelligence in order to increase that more and more. It's not as though the Buddha just wants to say, okay, this is the wrong view, don't accept that view, this is the right view, just accept this view. But we need to use the kind of wisdom that we have. We all have wisdom in various different kinds of levels. But the idea of trying to analyze these teachings is to increase and develop that kind of wisdom that we already have, in order that we are able to really know what is correct and incorrect, not just accepting what the Buddha says out of a sense of obligation or respect. Again, as this quotation says, analyze my words well as one would analyze gold through melting, refining, and polishing, and then adopt them. So we should engage in this process of like the three sort of levels of checking out gold to make sure when it comes to something like gold, we're usually really careful. We kind of do these various processes of sort of melting to see if there are any large impurities, and then refining and polishing and making sure it's really right. And it should be that way too when it comes to things like instructions regarding our future lives and gaining liberation and so forth. We should be very careful to understand this properly. And as the second half says, the skilled should not engage them out of admiration or for other reasons. The Buddha is not asking us to accept his words out of a sense of admiration or for some other sort of reason, like, oh, all of these other people think he seems to be telling the truth, so I should too. But rather, the Buddha gives these teachings with the purpose of leading us to the right view through our own discriminating intelligence. So as much as we are able to, we should refine and use that kind of skill, because really the part of the purpose in the Buddha's giving these teachings is to increase our own discriminating intelligence and awareness.
这就是awesome 啊！Oh yeah, that's all.
So we'll stop there for today as we've run out of time. So
May the spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path and all spiritual friends who practice it have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of Lotsang's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Idam Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. Thank you again, Rinpoche. Thank you very much.
Oh yeah, that's all. That's all. Oh yeah.
And thank you for your clear translations. For the people online, thank you for those who contributed to the offering that we made on the Day of Miracles. And just to let you know that the last teaching in this series will be on April 6th. We'll see you next Thursday.
Recording